Welcome back, Spiralers, to the Spiraling Higher Studio. And if you are watching this episode on YouTube, sorry to our audio listeners, you can see the custom blankets that I made for Gina.
So
last
ridiculous.
year.
It's so ridiculous.
And last time we were in the studio, you said you wanted to have a blanket. And I was
sure
like,
did.
I made you one. So here you go.
How abundant.
How abundant. You can actually see the OG Spiraling Higher logo here in the middle of the blanket. What an homage. What an homage to our beautiful journey.
It's literally the tapestry of our life.
It literally is.
The quilt of our life.
The strings, the threads
The golden
that
threads
weave us together.
that connect us. Yes. Wow. It's so ridiculous, but we hope you enjoy. These are not available for purchase.
Let us know. Let us know if you would like a custom.
I highly doubt that they would want one with all of these images.
I know. Look,
but
my
maybe,
parents
like,
are even on there from when we went to dinner.
Oh my God, stop. I forgot about that one. Wait,
My
we
dad
should
is
have one with just like the logo though.
Yeah, no, I do want to make another one with our new branding. But
Yeah.
It's so crazy because right before we hit record, I was just looking at you with the blanket over your lap, and I realized we're in the manifestation.
We're living it. We have been waiting for this moment. I don't know why it's been so cemented in my brain, but I've just continuously visualized us sitting in these type of chairs with a blanket, with our little drinks, our bevies.
With custom Spiraling Higher mug.
I love it too because I brought mine every single week for months, and then as soon as you started bringing yours, I stopped. It's in my car, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We have these.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of personalized merch now that's not for sale.
Yes.
Maybe we should start making it for sale. But anyways, it is so crazy to witness what we once anticipated in our minds
Yeah.
and see it in reality. But what I will say that we did really well on the journey to this manifestation is we really milked the journey. We really milked it.
Milking the moment.
I wasn't like, man, we're not on the freaking chairs yet, and we don't have our little blankets, and we need a mug. I wasn't rejecting the moment. I was like, man, that's gonna be so fun. And I
Yeah.
think the thing that people don't tell you about manifestation is that the anticipation is sometimes even better.
I was just going to say that. To me, it reminds me a lot of Christmas morning before you open the presents or the Christmas Eve. I love that feeling.
Okay,
And even
literally everyone knows that the month of Christmas is better than Christmas Day.
yeah.
Christmas Day?
I mean, I do
don't
love
know.
Christmas Day.
Do
I
you?
do. It's a very different energy. I love Christmas Day because that's our day. It's like our tradition. We just watch basically all our favorite Christmas movies from early in the morning until like late at night. We like make cookies. It's such a vibe, but very different than the lead up to it. They're just
Very
two different
different.
energies, and I love them for different reasons. But I think for us, the idea of everything that we're going to create, even from this moment on, from this moment,
I knew you were gonna say.
I just couldn't help it. Shania Twain. I feel like from this moment on, we're still in this positive expectation of what's going to happen. I just know that
Not
everything that's
expectation,
coming,
positive anticipation.
right? Positive. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. And that's what Abraham Hicks talks a lot about, that you don't have to wait to feel that, but it's a fun experience to be excited for something. And I think
Yeah.
there was just no doubt in my mind that this would eventually happen. And even if it didn't, we're already having so much fun. So we're not missing out by not having the blanket situation, but it's fun to enjoy the blanket situation.
It's fun. And I think that creation and manifestation becomes so much more juicy when you really know how to milk that anticipatory energy.
Totally.
It's like
agree.
the whole journey of your life is like foreplay almost. It's like it could be so fun, right? Like that
Totally.
doesn't have to be this thing that you just like get out of the way, right? That's the journey. It's so fun to
Yeah.
really like allow those moments to unfold.
You know, this reminds me a lot of the way that we grew up. You know, I think that when you're a kid, you so badly want to be an adult.
And then you become an adult and you're like, it was about being a kid.
Like, I just want to be a kid again. And it's like now in this level of consciousness that we have, you can actually do that. You can be
know.
in the energy of the now moment. You don't have to keep on waiting for the future, as you would say, to save you, and kind of enjoy this moment from the future, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people enjoy their past moments because they look back in hindsight and think, I wish I would have enjoyed that time. We've talked about this a lot too, about even pictures of ourselves that, you know, when you were a teenager, you would see a picture and be like, ugh. And then now we look back and we're like, she's so cute.
I know. It's actually really sad. I will look at pictures that I very specifically remember thinking were so bad in the moment, or that I thought I looked so bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, I don't even know, not even 2 years later, I look at the photo and I'm like, oh, I look kind of cute. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't even ugly. It was just what I was feeling.
Yeah.
I was never actually this like horrifying, ugly human that I thought I was. And it was just, yeah, so many negative thoughts and beliefs I had that really created that experience.
I love that example though, because truly nothing changed about the picture. Like,
know,
it's
it's the
still
same
the same
picture.
image. It's just you change in your perspective and the lens.
Isn't that amazing?
It's actually, like, to me, that is what magic is. I've been having these conversations with my clients recently, and it's so funny because she kept talking about wanting to be supernatural and how when you read a book like Become Supernatural by
Right,
Joe
by Joe
Dispenza,
Dispenza.
or even this whole manifestation conversation that people have of how we're like magic and we're source energy. And yes, all of that is true, but the part that makes you supernatural is not that you're actually like this non-human. It's actually is your humanness. It's the fact that
Yes.
you're able to actually feel all of these things and actually become aware of these things. Like, that's what's supernatural. And again, our ability to change the literal reality just by switching our perspective. Like, nothing actually has to change around us. That is what's supernatural, not that you
Yeah.
have to be non-human.
Yeah, well, in A Course in Miracles, it defines a miracle as a change in perception.
Yes.
And so when they called Jesus a miracle worker, it wasn't that he was turning the water into wine. I don't really know what the science is behind that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what the historical
Yeah.
proof is there, but it was that he was changing the way people saw
Yeah.
themselves and their situations and the way
Yeah.
they experience life. Because I think even in all religions, I guess, especially Christianity, they say to see through the eyes of God. That just means to see it with love.
Yep.
Right? And so in any given moment, no matter what is happening, you can see yourself and your situation with love. That's the miracle.
That's the miracle.
And so it's crazy because in coaching, people come to us all the time and they work with us for any period between like 3-6 months. And they always end up saying, oh my God, like you changed my life, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I didn't change anything.
Yeah.
I just helped you change your perception and you changed your life.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that just a change in your perception just creates a whole new state of being, a whole new set of actions, a whole new creation of results. And that is the work.
And that's the miracle. And that's the magic.
That's the magic. We're magic on 10 toes, honestly.
Magic on 10 toes. I've never heard it said that way. I love that.
Yeah, and
Magic on
so
10 toes.
speaking of perception, and that being the magic, perception
Yes.
being your power, the conversation we were inspired to have today was about quitting.
Quitting. Yeah, it's so interesting as we were talking about it to start to talk about areas in our life where we perceive we were quitting, the experiences that we had around that, and also the perceptions of other people and what they deem as quitting and if it's bad or good. And there is definitely an overarching negative connotation around quitting for sure. That
Yeah, I
it's
was
like a
gonna-
bad thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask anyone who's listening, just as I said the word quitting.
Yeah.
What sort of happens in your body and in your mind? Are you like, ugh, like quitting? I know that a lot of people heard when they were growing up, like, don't be a quitter.
Yeah, don't quit.
Yeah, or like only losers quit, or whatever it is that you heard in your childhood. But I don't think we heard anything positive about quitting. And so people have a really hard time deciding, quote unquote, when to quit, whether that's a relationship or a job or a certain habit, because of all the negative conditioning around the word quit in the first place. You can't even really see your situation neutrally or objectively because quitting is bad.
Yeah.
And so by considering when to quit, shift, take a new direction, you're already rejecting and criticizing yourself for considering something like that.
It is a really interesting perspective to look at because I feel like there's nothing more liberating than quitting.
Oh, 100%. I was
It's-
such a quitter.
I do remember you saying that a lot when I first met you.
I quit so many things because my perspective on quitting was very different than a lot of people's, but in my mind, I was wasting time if I didn't quit.
Yes, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, no, I got to quit now and save time, which
Yes.
I perceive to be more valuable.
Totally. I completely agree. I feel like there's something really powerful in knowing that something just isn't what you want to be doing anymore. So why would you keep doing that? To me, if anything, the non-quitting has more negative connotation to me personally. But I do think people around me would often say like, wow, like you just quit that?
Yeah.
Or like, wow, you just switched, or you just changed that? And people were always so perplexed that sometimes it would kind of cause me to be like, should I not have done that for like a moment because
True.
of the reaction people would have from it, especially because I think people are still holding on to the whole potential piece. Like I'm sure for
Yeah.
you, when you quit ballet, there must have been people around you that were like, why would you give up? You've been doing this for so long. Did you have that?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the people that knew.
Yeah.
I actually did feel ashamed a bit about quitting at the time.
Interesting.
Because not because I didn't agree with my decision, but because I knew what people's perception of quitting
Yes,
was.
exactly.
Because I had moved to New York. I was from Tennessee. I moved to New York. I was dancing there. And then I went back to Tennessee, and I knew that people were going to think, well, actually, this is a projection. I don't actually technically know.
Yeah.
But I believed that they were going to think, oh, like she quit and left New York and now she's
Yeah.
back. As in,
Yeah.
you failed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that I was very cognizant of the fact that quitting is perceived as a failure, not as a success. But actually, looking back on the trajectory of my life, that was one of the greatest successes
Yeah.
of my young adult life.
Yeah.
It led to so many more things. It was truly a catalyst, and I do not see it as a failure. And I wouldn't have been able to actually quit if I did. So
Exactly.
I know that I personally didn't perceive it that way, but I was highly aware that
Yeah.
other people did. And thankfully, I was not so weak as to allow those opinions to impact my decision, because I do think that people struggle to quote unquote quit
Yep.
if they know that everyone around them is going to be like, oh my God, you're quitting, you're throwing in the towel, like
Yeah.
you're not going to keep going. Like I had this one friend, and she's a coach now, but she had done family medicine for years and was just burnt out from the medical system and did not feel supported. It wasn't a healthy lifestyle, and she knew she wanted to shift out of it, but everyone was like, but you went to school for you spent all that money, you're going to quit now? And God, there was so much just like emotional, intellectual labor around this quitting. And so, yeah, this kind of inspired us to talk about it, because I think we talk a lot to our clients about quitting.
Yeah.
Which is really not quitting. It's deciding to put your energy and focus and attention in a different place that's more aligned.
It's literally just making a choice and a decision. And that's the thing, I think, with quitting. I did want to double click a little bit on the public's perception or the people around you, because when it comes to something like ballet or a career, the assumption is that you're quitting because you're not good enough at it, or that you I certainly think that happens, especially when you're quitting a career. You know, like, oh, did it not work out? Is that why you're quitting? Did it get too hard and you're just not good enough at it? And I think that's what people resist, because they feel like a need to justify why they left. Like, oh, I didn't leave because I wasn't good at it. I just didn't, whatever. There's like this kind of need to explain. And I think people resist having those conversations, and then they end up staying somewhere that they don't want to be in. So it's just interesting, actually, even as we talk about this, to really discover how many different types of reactions can really happen. They all kind of stem from the same place, which is quitting's not good.
Right.
But it's interesting to see kind of the different angles that it takes based on what it is that you're doing and what other people's perception of it is. Because on the flip side of that, I definitely have had experiences where I had people telling me to quit.
Right.
Right? Saying you're wasting time. Like, it's never going to happen. Like, you should give it up. Like, why are you continuing to try that?
Well, let's give an example, because Gina had a budding singing career.
Oh my God.
How many years ago now? Like 15, more than 15 years ago.
I always forget how old I am. Hold on.
Almost 20 years ago.
Definitely. I think when it actually was starting to pop off, like pop off meaning like I was very, very early stages of
Should we
talking
play your
about.
song?
It's actually not my song. Is a song I wrote for somebody else, but
It's a banger.
Pretty.
Okay,
It's a high vibe
so
song.
Gina literally was signed. Guys, she was like a real
Very temporarily. And I mean, in that realm, my mom absolutely did not want me to be pursuing music. And so it's not even that she wanted me to quit. She just never wanted me to start. And there were certainly a lot of people around me that at the time were like, you know, no Asian is going to make it in, you know, the mainstream music
which is
world.
crazy.
Which is I mean,
Things have
back
changed
then,
so
things have
fast.
changed so much, right? And so people were saying that to me. I mean, frankly, even with our podcast, I've definitely had people say, ooh, like that's a really saturated thing to get into. It's never gonna like come off the ground or whatever, as
Ew,
if that's
get
the
your
only
limiting
reason
beliefs
why.
away from me.
But also, that's not the reason why we're even doing it.
Exactly.
Right? So it's
exactly.
like to project that onto me as a reason not to just says more about
You.
obviously like your life and what you're not willing to create for yourself. But yeah, like sometimes you do have people around you that don't think what you're doing is a good idea. And so basically what we're trying to get at here is that when you're ever considering whether to quit or not, or even to start something, frankly, it's really important that you separate your thoughts from other people's projections. And sometimes the projections happen so frequently and you're so used to hearing them that you actually start to believe that's what you think too.
Yes.
And so it sometimes takes time for us to really sift through the thoughts and the feelings that we're having around something so that we can actually discover, like, what's my truth?
Yeah. And I don't think we sit long enough with our own truth before we go and survey an
Yes.
entire audience of people
So
within our sphere
true.
of influence.
So true.
Because we feel uncomfortable. Like we're dealing with this feeling of, I don't know, like should I, shouldn't I? This is starting to get, I'm starting to feel X, Y, Z, and I need to go talk to someone about it. And then we get graced with those people's projections. And
Yeah.
this is what people do, right? If it matches what you were already on the trajectory of getting to yourself, then you're like, oh, this was good.
Right.
But if it opposes you, oh my God, you're just confused for that much longer. And so
Yeah.
I think you really need to ask yourself before going to anyone, what would you like to do if no one else could know or have an opinion about it?
Yeah.
Because with respect to, and we can give our own examples, but I'm just thinking about my friend who left medicine. I think if she didn't have to ask anyone about that,
Totally.
and no one could know, and no one could feel impacted, no one had a negative opinion or
She already
judgment,
knew.
she would have left. It wouldn't have taken that long.
Yeah.
But with all of the opinions also matching her own fears, they were resonating with her fear of like, did I waste all this time? Did
Yep.
I waste all this money? Right? Those are kind of lingering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those people were reflecting those back, and then you sort of oscillate back and forth for a long time, and you waste energy and quote unquote time.
Yeah. I remember when I did decide to quit music.
Yeah.
Sounds like so official.
What sort of led up to you quitting music? Because for a while, people were saying you're never going to make it. And you were very, oh, I'm going to make it.
I'm never somebody that ever is really impacted on what somebody tells me I can or can't do. That's just never been something that ever stops me. It's just me when I tell myself, you suck. That's always been my challenge. Other people's kind of projections, I think because my parents were always telling me I couldn't do something. I don't know. I guess I was just really well-versed in dealing with that. But for me with the singing, I just wasn't enjoying it the same way that I thought I would. The industry is also just filled with a lot of weirdo kind of people, to be honest. There's some creepy guys sprinkled in there. There's people with not the best intentions. The whole thing just started to lose its sparkle for me. But this actually brings up a really good point because even though I felt this feeling inside of me that felt like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, I thought that was me having a limiting belief. So
this
sometimes
can make it so hard for people to quit.
Yes, because I think you then second guess like, oh no, I should just believe in myself. Like I do want to do this.
Keep going.
I only feel like this because I'm, doubting myself, but I can do this. I can do this. And it just took me some time, like I said, to sift through to discover like, what do I actually feel about this? Like what do I actually want to do? How do I want to spend my time? Am I enjoying myself? And ultimately I came to a place where, first of all, I don't want to perform in front of people. I think I also realized that I didn't actually want to be a singer. It was more of what I thought that singing could give me, which was a ton of validation, a lot of this public exposure that I thought would make me feel better about myself. It was just this very rose-colored glasses type of perspective that frankly a lot of kids have too, of just wanting to be famous, and people in general, I guess I can say. So I think for me, once I started to lift that veil of what did I actually think I was going to get from this, I realized I don't want this at all. I actually started going more into the songwriting side, and even now, if I were to go into the music industry, I would actually want to be more on the management side of like an artist. I like doing the whole visionary thing, but I don't personally want to be like on the stage. And the other thing too is I did at one point. And eventually that changed. So sometimes quitting is not even you giving up. It's you evolving and attuning to the changes that you have inside of yourself. You know, it was true at one point that it was a dream of mine, and then it wasn't. And that's not because I'm bad or didn't have what it takes or any of those things. I just changed.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's not that it wasn't your dream before, it's that you evolved out of it.
I outgrew it.
Yeah, and so I am kind of curious because I don't think I've ever heard the full story, but did you struggle a lot to just make that decision to walk away? What was the conversation inside of your head or maybe with other people?
I actually didn't really talk to a lot of people about it. I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it aside from people who were in the music industry, which
Right.
I was like, I'm not going to talk to you about it. But yeah, I think for me, it was definitely continuing to kind of test the waters. And as I would get different opportunities, I could feel that I wasn't as excited about them. When I looked into what it actually takes to get things off the ground and who you even have to try to, you know, come into like contact with and all of the different layers you have to kind of bust through to meet the right people, all those types of things. There was just a lot of that I didn't really love. And even when it came to songwriting for other artists that I was trying to do in people in K-pop. I had a friend who was a very big singer in K-pop at that time. And she was opening a lot of doors for me, or trying to at least. And yeah, like even as I was going through that process, I was like, I'm not even writing songs that like I want to write. This is now writing songs that they'll like and in hopes that they're going to buy it. So it just took what I love doing, which is music and singing and creating, and turned it into something that I didn't want it to be.
You pimped it out.
I did pimp it out. That's literally where that first idea came from me, was that I'm taking something I love so much and trying to turn it into some sort of monetization or a business. And I think that's been one of my biggest lessons in my adult life, is just because you love it and you're good at it and it's this creative expression, like you don't need to turn it into anything other than just enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I feel like our culture is so, yeah, it's just so primed to turn everything into monetization of some kind. And it's like that Bernie, the mittens.
Oh, yeah. There was a woman who knitted Bernie, one of the presidential candidates in the U.S. These mittens, and there was a meme of him where he's just like holding his hands, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, like where did he get these mittens?" And then they find the woman online, and she makes them made to order, like occasionally
by her own hands,
right? Yeah, occasionally, and just happened to make a pair for him. I don't know if they had a personal connection or if he just bought them off of
randomly.
I have
Yeah,
no idea.
maybe.
But everyone was like, "Wow, she should really capitalize on this moment and maximize and basically capitalize on sales." And she was like, "I don't want to make these as a business,
right?
I don't want to." And that was actually perplexing for a lot of people who saw dollar signs in their eyeballs,
totally,
at this really hugely skyrocketing event for this woman, which to her was honestly just noise.
It was just noise. And it could have been something that catapulted her business if she wanted. But I think this brings up another topic we had talked about before we started, which is you have to really know and discern what you're quitting. I didn't quit music. I just quit the pursuit of trying to become a famous singer that was signed by a big label. I didn't quit music. I still sing. I still will randomly write music. I still listen to music all the time. But some people think you're quitting that whole thing. And even on that same kind of vein, sometimes when you want to quit something, it might not be wanting to quit the entire thing, but you want to quit an element of it. Essentially, there's maybe a boundary that you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So for an example, as in a friendship maybe, you might not be ready to like cut this person off and quit the friendship, but maybe you're just no longer going to be available for this type of whatever behavior or something like that. Or even as an entrepreneur, maybe you don't want to quit your entire entrepreneurial journey, but maybe you're just going to adjust it and say, I'm no longer going to do this aspect of it. So sometimes thinking about quitting as, again, instead of thinking of it as like a hard stop, it's really just a fine tuning.
Yeah, like we had a conversation around all or nothing thinking.
Yep.
And we can be very all or nothing with to quit or not to quit.
Exactly.
And instead, what if the quitting or the conversation around quitting is getting you to just evaluate how is it that I would like to engage with this thing? And same for me with dance. I didn't quit dancing.
Yeah.
I still dance weekly.
Yeah.
I'm just no longer pursuing being a professional dancer.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was too many factors that came along with that were damaging.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately for both of us, when it came to pursuing these previously creative careers, they started to feel like shoulds.
That's a
They were
big
no
one.
longer excitable or driven by our own inspiration. That was what got us in the door. And then it started to feel very obligatory. It started to feel like who we were needed to be shaped by the industry's desire. It wasn't actually our true creative desire keeping us there. It was, I need to become this for someone else. And I think that's what starts to give you the ick, so to speak. It's like, I'm not really liking showing up here anymore because I'm not feeling free. I'm
Yeah.
not feeling expressed fully. And yeah, I think it just started to feel more energetically draining than giving. And so that was one of my pieces of criteria was how much energy am I gaining or losing from this?
Yeah.
And if I transition now into my next career, which was real estate, which you also shared, we worked together, I was doing conventionally really well.
Yep.
I think I was hitting a lot of traditional metrics of success. Both Gina and I were making a lot of sales, both climbed into the top 10% of realtors. And man, we were just constantly working, just constantly on the phone, constantly driving around town, constantly doing offers on our phone, on our iPad, on the computer, whether it was in the car or in the office. And, theoretically, according to a lot of our beliefs at the time, you should have been really happy. Have really successful business, right? Lots of clients coming in, deals are closing. But we felt so terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't have time for what we actually thought was important was our relationships.
Yep.
Like we weren't even hanging out, like we weren't spending time with our partners. I had no time for hobbies. I was not dancing or skating at the time.
No.
Like it was just everything went into work and then sleeping. And so what I started to evaluate or notice within myself was I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I'm starting to hate this. And I thought that I was going to be really happy and that I should like it. And so the question around quitting started to come up pretty quickly, I would say like 2 years in, because I was no longer feeling like myself. I think that was really important was that for me anyways, for me to feel really aligned and fulfilled in my life, I have to feel like me.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, frankly, I feel like even getting into real estate for you
Wasn't
didn't
me.
feel like you either.
But that's the thing. A lot of people right now are questioning quitting things that were never meant for them to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's so interesting. Like to me, I feel like, with like sitcoms or even a book, sometimes it just goes too long and you're like, you should have stopped episode 10.
You should have stopped at season 5.
Yeah, like that was enough. And that's how I kind of perceive these decisions when I'm quitting. It's basically a question of, is this chapter done? Am I done writing in this chapter? Am I ready for a new one? And again, I think when people quote unquote quit, they feel like this immense loss a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Where to me and you, all we see is what we're going to get in exchange for that energy, as you said, because not pursuing this will open up so much more space and energy for me to do whatever else I want to do now.
Right. But you always say this, you can only measure what you're going to lose. You can't measure what you're going to gain.
And so it's our work to train our brains to look at what else you can gain, because it is a survival mechanism to measure what you're going to lose. That's a very wise part of our bodies and our brains, but it's so limiting to leave it at that, right? Like you actually have other settings on your brain that you can use to actually work in your favor to show you, wait, there's so many other things I could be doing now. And when it comes to the singing and frankly for you with the dancing, I don't think either of us knew what that next thing really was. It's not like I was like, now I'm going to quit this and do this instead. I didn't really have anything else lined up. I just knew that was no longer what I wanted to spend my energy on. And then I just moved on with the rest of my life. And it's so interesting, too, to see how something that I quote unquote quit is something that I'm actually still using to build more creatively on top of now. Like that actually did create a really cool building block for me, because now my daughter, we just talked about this before we started recording. We're going to build a little makeshift recording studio in her room. And like all of the experience that I had is making it actually easier for me to help my daughter do these things as a really playful, fun thing that we get to do together. And so again, it's never even like a quit, we close it off and we never look at it again. But even for real estate, for you learn so much about yourself, about the way you want to run business. Like, so I don't know, I guess I always see quitting as just another connector piece to the next connecting piece. It's not this hard stop, we shut the door. Even relationships, right? Those ended relationships that we have also create building blocks for future relationships. So I don't know, maybe you can't ever actually quit anything in the sense that you're always going to learn from it and continue to like get a return on investment for those energetic exchanges.
I just randomly got this visual of a highway and I see quitting as taking an exit.
Exactly.
It's like, oh no, I'm quitting being on the highway. It's like, yeah, because you don't want to go that way anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You need to take exit 85 or whatever to go this way towards a different place, but you don't stop driving.
Exactly.
Like I'm seeing this image, and this is what happens in my brain sometimes, where I'm seeing that this is the direction I want to move in, but nothing's being stopped.
Yes.
It's more that the energy is being carried into a new timeline, if you will.
Exactly.
And this was just the end of this particular timeline, but I take it with me. I take all the lessons, I take all the experiences. But ultimately, I want to really relay what could be the reason why you are having such a hard time quitting, especially for the ones who deeply and intuitively know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't feel good anymore. It's energy depleting. It hasn't been what I wanted for a while. Maybe it never was what you wanted.
Yeah.
And I would think that the first step is to really challenge the idea of quitting in the first place, which we kind of started this episode with, right? What do you make it mean to quit? And how can you reframe that in a way that actually makes you not the victim of your story or the villain even, but the hero of your story? Because if you are some bad human being for deciding not to do this thing anymore, whether it's a relationship or a job or a certain routine, how can you allow yourself to take the decision or make the decision that's in alignment with you if it's reinforcing that you think you're a bad person? It can't be that you're a bad person. And I think that happens a lot with relationships.
Yes.
Especially. It happens in work too, where it's like, if I leave, then like I'm hurting the company, or like if I leave the relationship, then like I'm bad for not sticking it out, or like he's gonna be hurt, or whatever. And so you're not really even fighting the thing that you want to leave. You're fighting your own beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have the belief that you were going to be a bad person by taking this action, what would be left? What your heart desires.
Yeah. It really just is giving yourself permission to be honest with yourself, and then having the courage to honor that. Because I think that a lot of us do know that honest answer inside. Like, as you said, I think that a lot of our clients have known for a long time that this is something that they want to stop or they want to end. They already know. It's just there's something that is preventing you from taking action on that. And it's about getting curious about that.
Yes. Like, what is the experience you believe that you end up having if you courageously acknowledge what is true?
Right.
What happens?
Yeah. Ultimately, what are you avoiding?
Yes. Yeah, because that's why you would stall on quitting. You're avoiding an experience. And actually, people will say to themselves a lot, I feel stuck.
Yes.
And
so
stuck
true.
is not an emotion.
No.
It's the unwillingness to feel one. And so if you feel stuck right now and you're wondering, do I quit? Do I go? Should I stay? Blah, blah, blah. Right? What experience am I trying to avoid? That's the exact experience you have to be willing to meet. That's where the meat is.
That's like, where the good stuff is.
That's where it is. And that's where you're going to find out, oh my God, I'm so afraid that everyone's going to think I'm a bad person, or I'm so afraid that blah, blah, blah is going to happen. And it's that where it's there where you have to meet yourself. Because if you can't meet that fear with acceptance and compassion, you will avoid it.
Yeah.
Forever. And that will come at a cost.
Oh, yeah. We're always paying something.
Yeah. You're paying the toll.
Yeah, you're paying the toll. Yeah, for sure. And I think that happens a lot with people, especially quitting a job per se. I think they have this fear of, I don't want them to think XYZ. I don't want them to feel like I'm, leaving them behind, or that I'm not committed. Or it's often that we are just avoiding somebody thinking something about us.
Which is really just us thinking that about us.
Exactly. And so it is about you getting curious about that. What if they did think that? I love doing that with our clients and just saying, well, what if that did happen? That could be possible, right? And that's actually, frankly, what I did with the podcast, where there was this fear of, oh, well, what if people think I sound stupid? Or what if people think I look weird? And it's like, they might.
Yeah.
They might. And so.
And you won't die.
And I'll be okay. Exactly. And it's about facing that quote unquote fear or the thing that we're trying to avoid, and actually really just seeing like the Wizard of Oz behind it, which is it's not actually this big scary thing. I don't want to invalidate it. It's real for you to have that experience in fear of this thing, but it's not real in the sense that it's an actual reason why you can't take the steps that you want to take. But this gets to be such a loving journey that you take yourself through. It's very much like, you know, when my kid wants to go on a ride or that she's scared of, but I know she wants to go on, it's like I get to kind of coax her through that experience so that she can see she had nothing to be afraid of in the first place. So when it comes to quitting, you know, the first time you really allow yourself to be honest with yourself, it's terrifying because you don't have a built-in self-trust that you've been leaning on. But once you start actually giving yourself the space and honoring your own truth, you really can't go back. And so, you know, circling this back to the whole quitting conversation, take inventory. I think my whole new theme now is to keep on taking inventory of my life and of my desires and of the direction I'm going in, because I think the assumption is that just because you've really wanted to do something for so long, like that's what you're always going to want. And I think in this season of my life, I'm just so open to my mind changing, my feelings shifting to something different, to wanting a different energetic experience. And literally, I just feel like quitting does not exist in my vocabulary. It's just, when am I done writing on this page? And what do I want to write next?
I was going to say, what do I want to write next? Because you're not stopping the writing.
Exactly.
You're just writing something different.
Yes.
And I think, it is so hard to put a hard stop on something because, and not that you even have to, we talked about adjusting and changing it to meet your needs better, but I think it's because it's just what's known.
Yeah.
It's what's known. And when we give up or quit or change this thing, we are opening up a space for unknown. And we don't like that. And so we have to learn how to really embrace that and learn to dance with it. I mean, I really feel like I fuck with the unknown. I'm like, good. I don't want to repeat the same thing.
I love the unknown.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know what's over there. And I have a generally positive orientation towards the unknown. Like, I am willing to believe that things that are amazing for me and that I can't even imagine yet are in there.
Yeah.
So I kind of open arms energy towards that unknown as opposed to most people are like, I don't know what's going to happen over there. It could be really bad.
Yeah.
But with respect to what you said a little bit earlier, I think your fear is very real. You can absolutely feel that, but you're not in danger.
Yes.
And that's the difference. And I think you start to eventually learn that when you feel fear in your body, you become aware of that, you meet that, but you don't react as if you are in danger, because you're not in danger if you decide to quit, whether it's a relationship or a job. But the fear can definitely create that experience for you. So you have to be smarter than your fear.
Yeah. I mean, the only really dangerous part is you like believing the fear.
Is you believing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what makes it so dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like this is the final thing I'll say on this, because I had this really amazing epiphany the other day. But I thought about when you are having a nightmare, because this was happening to me the other day. I was having a nightmare, and in my dream and upon the moment of waking, I felt so much fear in my body. Like a really scary thing was happening. And I know while I was asleep, my body was pumping like cortisol and adrenaline, because I'm literally hallucinating a scary scene in my mind while I'm asleep on this bed. I'm completely safe. As soon as I woke up, I'm feeling the terror. I'm feeling the like gasp for air. But it takes me about 5 seconds before I realize, that was a dream and I'm in my bed.
Yeah.
You can wake up from your fear stories like that in regular waking life. And it's a skill. And I've built that over time, where I start to go down this road of like, oh shit, it's going to get bad. And I'm like, whoa, this is a nightmare. We're good. Like right now, I'm in my car. Like, it's not happening. It's just this visual projection, a literal hallucination. And I validate that I feel those feelings, because when I wake up in the morning from a nightmare, I'm like, whoa, like that was kind of crazy. I actually felt that. You did. And it was very real, but you weren't in real danger. I was never at risk of death. I was laying in my bed.
You were asleep.
I was asleep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that story. I think that just really paints the picture so clearly, that you really just are under the influence sometimes. And really this brings us back to one of our main key lessons, which is come back to the moment.
Yeah.
Be present. And I think the last thing I'll add on the topic of quitting specifically is I would ask myself, like, what about this do I want to quit? what about this is not working for me anymore? What about this doesn't feel aligned? Because I feel like that will start to give you space to, again, not say maybe no to the whole thing, but maybe discern what part of it you're not enjoying. Because again, that's easily tweakable, potentially. But it could also just end up being like all of it, which then you'll know, right? But I think it's just important to give yourself that time and space to really look at it a little bit closer and look through the layers and the nuances, and to be able to reflect on, yeah, like, is this mine or is this something that was projected onto me? So really it just all comes down to trusting yourself and giving yourself space to allow your truth to come up and out and to create safety for that to happen. Because if your fear is that if I quit, it'll be bad, the truth can never come up and out inside of you because there's too much fear that's kind of blocking it from coming out. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. And yet, what is bad? Like,
Exactly.
and then it will be bad. Bad how?
Exactly.
What exactly happens? And that can be really scary to dive into, but it's so important because I feel like I've been able to look under the bed of my fears, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing under there. You're just telling me that I'm going to feel scared, which I already feel right now.
Exactly.
And so if it's like the fear of hell is hell. We've talked about that. And so if I can meet the fear I'm feeling in this moment, then that gives me the trust to know that I'll be able to face that fear in the future. There's no worse thing than fear. It's the typical quote, there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Yep.
You're just feeling fear.
Yeah, which you're already feeling. Yeah, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Michael J. Fox. And he says, essentially, that there's no point in you imagining the worst case scenario because it rarely ever happens. But even if it does, you'll have lived through it twice.
I know he said that.
Yeah, I love this quote. I've lived by it because it's so true. Because again, the fear of quitting, whatever you perceive might happen, you're literally living through it by being afraid of it.
Yeah,
and
you're creating it.
You're creating it. And so in some ways, if you do feel that, that should show you, oh, I can deal with this. I'll be okay.
True.
Yeah, like you literally already are. It's kind of like if you got thrown into a pool and you're like, I can't swim, but you're swimming. It's like, you're fine. You know how to swim. And this is kind of the same thing. If you're anticipating that fear and you're feeling in your body and it's causing you to stop taking the action that you want to take, you're kind of already in the worst part. So whatever is going to come after that, you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good final question. If you knew you were going to be okay, what would you change?
Oh, I love that question.
Would you stay? Would you quit? Would you shift? What would you allow yourself to create for yourself instead if you knew you were going to be okay?
Yeah, I love that question.
Yeah.
That's a good one to end on.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for telling me your story about music. And yeah, not really allowing anyone outside of you to influence you. In fact, I didn't really either. I didn't ask anyone.
No, you were, I mean, for anything. I think you and me both are just the kind of people that when we know, we know.
We're cardinal signs.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't stay in something that I just know is wrong. I mean, except for maybe certain toxic relationships in the past. But when it came to, things that I just knew in my bones, and even frankly with the toxic relationships, once I knew,
right,
it was done.
But I think that for a lot of people, there is beliefs and fears that block them from knowing.
Absolutely. And I've definitely been there, so I can really relate. But yeah, like once you know, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Know that if you were going to be okay, what were you going to do? And I think, I had a conversation with a client the other day and she was like, I guess I just hope I'm going to be okay. And I said, aren't you?
Exactly.
And she was like, I guess so. And I was like, you will be.
Yeah.
And then I think that's really all people want to know, is that they are going to be okay. And obviously, if you're fearing to quit or stay, whatever decision it is, one of them you feel more okay with. But if you were okay in any situation, right, this is what faith and trust is. If you were okay in all of them, which one would you prefer?
Yes.
And Gina and I are all about creating a life of preferences.
Yep.
So I hope that helps you all become more clear on when to quit, when to stay, how to shift. And we hope that you make the decision that's aligned for you.
Yes.
And we'll chat with you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this honest conversation. We hope it brought you peace, clarity, and a little bit further along your spiritual journey.
If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to us if you left us a 5-star rating and a review so we can bring you more conscious conversations, spiritual topics, and guests.
And we lovingly invite you to join our free Spiraling Higher community by clicking the link in the show notes to continue this healing dialogue and share with us how this episode impacted you.
Come on in, introduce yourself, and meet your conscious besties in a safe space for healing conversations between us and other like-minded people on their healing journey.
Here's to Spiraling Higher.